John Miller has a question. A big challenge will be fighting the right fights. The left will do everything to distract and derail us. We have to keep our eyes focused on the horizon and not get sidetracked by attacks. I think that's going to be a difficult for President Trump. My hesitancy in terms of going all in on this guy right up through the election was that I had a very serious concern that he was psychologically incapable of walking away from a certain kind of insult. That if the insult were constructed to hit him right at exactly where he's most tender, and I think he's pretty tender in a lot of places, frankly, but I was worried that if somebody were able to construct an argument or a sentence in such a way that he simply could not respond to it, he had to, he was compelled to. And I saw this in the first debate when Hillary started questioning about how much money he had. Donald Trump had her on the ropes the first 15, 20 minutes of that debate. The second she questioned his money, all he did was talk about how much money he had and how nice the properties were and everything. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is the game. This is showtime now. You're on national television with the debate. And if you're not capable of walking away from an obvious trap like that, then, this is something to worry about. It'd be like if somebody said, if somebody called me a communist, and that meant that I could not function in any other way or any other arguments or do any other thinking until I proved to them that I wasn't a communist, then I would have a psychological problem. So choosing your fights is very, very important. And we spend an awful lot of energy fighting against people who are never going to change. And this is a real problem. I think it's why it was a super, how's it going, baby? I think it was a super, every time I look over there, I get so distracted. Oh, picking battles. If we're serious about it as a movement, we need to do what doctors do when they're faced with limited resources. John's point is correct. We don't have the resources that the left has, and so we have to use them wisely. So how do we decide to do that? And I think it's just simple triage. I really don't think there's much more to it than that. Triage basically says, when it was developed in field hospitals during wartime, triage basically said there are three different kinds of wounded people out there. There are the people who are lightly wounded, who've got some shrapnel in their hand, and they don't need attention right now because they're going to live for at least several days. They're not in any immediate threat of dying. So we're not going to treat those people right now. Also, there are people out there who are so badly wounded, their entire guts are blown out, but they're still alive. They're so badly wounded that we will not have any chance or a microscopic chance of saving them. They're going to die whether we take them into the operating room, yes or no. Those people need to be given pain medication, and they don't get the resources either because the triage is there to make sure that a limited number of doctors and nurses and hospitals and equipment can save as many lives as possible. The first group is not in any danger because they're lightly wounded. The third group is not in any danger because they're dying and they cannot be saved. And in the middle is a group of people who are wounded severely enough to be life-threatening, but still repairable. So I think that's what we do politically. I think that's exactly what we do. We just simply say, who am I arguing with here? I'm not likely to convince Touré or Roseanne Barr to change your mind, although I would very much like to debate Roseanne Barr and all those ladies on The View and all the ladies on The View and so on. But if you're talking about somebody like that, like Keith Olbermann has gone completely unhinged. I don't know if you've seen his videos, but being fired for 4 or 5 years and being an absolute nobody will drive you mad. Keith Olbermann has lost his mind. And we're not going to win over Keith Olbermann, so let's just triage him out, and let's triage most of these college professors out, and let's just triage them away. And we're never going to turn them. And to spend time trying to argue with these people is to waste time and resources. It's just like barking at a stone wall. It's not going to happen. We're not going to waste time with those people because they cannot be converted. They've got their guts blown out and they're going to die. So they're going to go over here in a corner. We're not going to waste any more resources on them. It's a pity, but we're talking about the real world now. Conversely, there are people that don't need the fight. We spend so much time and effort preaching to the choir. We make all these church movies and movies for people about the benefits of Christianity for people who are already Christians. And we make conservative movies for people who are already conservative. And that's a waste of time, in my opinion. It's not a waste of time, but it's not where we need to put our resources. The resources need to go to the people who can be convinced, to the people who are convinced that they're left-wingers, convinced that socialism is the answer, convinced all of this stuff is right. They 100% believe it, but they can be convinced. They haven't become ideologues yet. They're just misinformed. Some people, when they're misinformed, when you show them that they're misinformed, you make a better argument for them, they'll change their mind. They'll go, hey, that guy's making some sense. So that's where we need to go. And it's a really good point, too, about picking your fights, John. It's absolutely true. And we're going to get trolled by this. And we should troll them, too, by the way. In fact, I think we did Steve Green's episode of Right Angle this week. It hasn't been posted yet, but it's about trolling, specifically trolling these social justice warriors to make them have meltdowns because they look stupid. And on that show I said, and also we should make them have these emotional meltdowns to be kind to them. That would be the kind thing to do. Have them face emotional situation they've never had to face. Have them be standing next to a challenge that they can't, scream their way out of. It'd be good for them too, to start growing up somewhere in their mid to late 30s. All righty, here we go.